major fintech zones in Africa, all without an exception, everybody has an FX problem, especially 2023, right? So what's the way forward? What are your thoughts on the emerging issuance concerns? Every other continent, right? Do they have the same problems we have with chargebacks and failed transactions? Are we just realizing that, we need to find the operations around this, or is it the same thing, around the world?
So
from payment architecture, the design, previously we used to have dual message types and then single message types, right? And for dual message types, there's this pre-auth thing that goes to check if you have funds, have a lien on the funds, right? So that when the debit comes, it knows that it's debiting money. We started off with that in Africa, Nigeria at some point, and then, we just moved to single messages. If we were to bring back pre-auth, can it be a way to solve this insufficient funds thing? What do you think? And a lot of them are bleeding, right, on their card products. So I'd like to understand what the income lines are, what the cost lines are for offering a card product as a fintech. So we like you. So we are going to give you a part of our bean range. And so the fintech is saying, what's Ike saying? Because I don't need direct bean sponsorship. The bank is creating a card program for me under their own system, like the banks that already have the card management systems from Postillion. So do I need to get into all this complexity you're talking about? The emerging concerns about issuance, right, on the continent, especially around international acceptance, FX that is a problem, not just in Nigeria, from our survey or our research, major fintech zones in Africa, all without an exception, everybody has an FX problem, especially 2023, right? So what's the way forward? What are your thoughts on the emerging issuance concerns?
I don't think we can separate it from the general macroeconomic challenges we're having on the continent. The war in Ukraine has really affected Africa, has affected FX. I'm talking, let me put fintechs aside, even banks, are having challenges, being able to source for funds to meet their settlement needs, because it's cost much more now. Everything really is intertwined. When this is happening in Ukraine, it's affecting grain, it's affecting food, it's affecting this, it's affecting logistics. So the cost of borrowing, the cost of financing, the cost of FX, everything is going up, So yes, it's a problem, and when you have Nigeria case where Naira can't work abroad anymore, everyone is looking for USD, so the more people that are looking for it, the higher the cost goes. You go to a place in the CMAC region as well, it's tough now to even get, dollar. A lot of those regions, they have to go to the central bank to get it. The black market isn't like ours, So for the fintech as well, in some cases, the banks are telling them they have to source, they have to back, their program with hard funds, So, and that is a challenge as well. So it's all increasing the cost of actually the program, which is why, when that is a reality and people want to launch a program and they're saying, I don't want to charge my customer anything, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure which world you're in, because
exactly what you're talking about.
It's going to be really, really tough. So FX is a challenge for the fintechs, especially those like today. Naira USD card is big. Everybody wants the USD card, but the first thing I ask them is, do you have a steady source of FX?
Yeah.
If your source is going to black market to buy, all right, that is not really sustainable, because it's going to be so costly. The guys who do it well are those that have inflows for whatever business they're doing that requires inflows to come into the country. Then, because you don't want to start a product and then you because your cash flow is bad, and all of a sudden you're telling people, oh, you can only load, $10 this month. What it means is you're having an FX squeeze on yourself. So as much as it looks good to say, I want to do a USD card, but if you don't have, a steady source of FX, whether it's, you work with the FCMG, FMCGs, all these people that, whatever it is, whether it's inflows, you need to have that so that you can predict the longevity of your program. Because today, I mean, is it 770 or so? I don't even know what it's going at, USD to Naira. So that's key. Make sure you have the steady source of FX to sustain your program over the long run. Otherwise, there's no point in entering into that field.
Interesting. So I'll go to the second one, the whole thing about chargebacks and failed transactions. But I want to ask, a specific question. Is it from, GTP, when you were in GTP, you had the advantage of seeing everywhere, in the world, because GTP is originally a US company.
Yeah.
And then, so you had colleagues over there.
By the way, I'm still in GTP. It's not as if the company, I mean, we're still, we still run the business. So I haven't gone. It's just that, I mean, one's responsibility has expanded, should I say. So, yeah.
Cool. So I wanted to ask, every other continent, right? Do they have the same problems we have with chargebacks and failed transactions? Are we just realizing that, we need to find the operations around this, or is it the same thing, around the world? So
the mere fact that we have chargebacks and chargeback fraud, it didn't originate here with us. It's been in the West, for a long time. Okay. But over there, it's syndicated. You have people who, there's syndicates that target, those type of things. Now, our guys here have also discovered, that you can actually do it and make money from it. Because when you kind of issue cards for free, people tend to think that, oh, I can just go to town and do whatever I want. And you do have bad actors, people who deliberately want to see how they can manipulate the system. When they find out that one fintech has just launched, you'll just be surprised that in a day you can get 5,000 cards issued. And what they're doing is they're trying to see what are the loopholes, what can we do? Can we quickly, order some stuff online and then try and see if we can charge it back? Now, that's why the questions at the beginning about your compliance, your KYC, your AML, all those things now become much more important. There are things that fintechs, maybe in their own ecosystem, isn't that important. But when you cross over to the card side, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in some cases, talking about millions at stake. So it's very important that they also have an internal compliance that actually screens their customers and they watch customer behavior. For example, denied transactions. The typical customer journey was that especially for virtual cards, you'd issue a virtual card, and as soon as you go through the KYC, the card pops up on your app. You've not funded it. That guy takes that card, puts it on eBay, Amazon, puts it everywhere. He's not funded. Obviously, that card would be denied by the merchant because there's no money on it. So the education of the customer journey had to change to such that now they're mandating that you must, especially if it's a prepaid, you must pre-fund it before you can issue the card, before you can view the card credential, so that at least you're getting, a chance that it's going to be a successful transaction. Now, you even have not just fintechs, issuers as well, banks who are charging customers for denied transactions. Now, the majority of denials are from insufficient funds. Okay. And it's not about whether it's a Visa, Master, it's general. Everyone's seeing it. It's from insufficient funds. So people either forget that they don't have money on their card, and they just leave it. I have some cards as well, but, I can't remember, and yeah, if it's a subscription payment, the merchant will always come and try and collect that money. And remember that every time he comes, there's a click fee that the scheme will, charge at the end of the month. And so what are the things that people can do? Yes, you can try to make sure that your customers are funding their cards, remind them. And then if you're seeing the denials, people are shutting down cards as well. Okay. But the scheme's also coming in as well. And they're trying to see what can we do to sort of address this from, stakeholder standpoint, because it's not good for them when a program does 500,000 transactions in a month and 400 are denials. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So they're trying to see how we can educate more. Obviously, the punitive side of it hasn't really been addressed in terms of the cost, because that's really the challenge. It's either the issuer is paying it or you're moving it onto the acquirer, but in most cases it's the issuer that's bearing the brunt, and it's making the programs, especially for the fintechs, extremely difficult to extremely unviable, because we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in cost and how much revenue you're making. So it's a challenge that I think the industry, especially the stakeholders, the schemes, really need to get around, because at the end of the day, if people are losing money by issuing your cards, why am I doing it?
Sure.
Why am I doing it? Yeah.
So I want to summarize what I've learned, that charging cards because they have insufficient funds, it's not a fraudulent problem. They are charging me for something I'm not earning from, and since you're the cost, I'm going to send it to you.
Yeah. That basically, I'm just and remember, it's just a cost recovery type of thing, but it's limited as well, because if the man gets zero, you can't charge him anything, So I mean, it's just a way to reduce the burden that you're getting from the schemes, to say, look, and it's a way to correct customer behavior as well. So if you see that you're having to pay, you'll maybe fund your card, but a lot more engagement needs to happen with customers about how to use cards, about, what, successful and denial transactions are, etc. Yeah.
Awesome. I wanted to ask one question before we move, out of here. From payment architecture, the design, previously we used to have dual message types and then single message types, right? And for dual message types, there is this pre-auth thing that goes to check if you have funds, have a lien on the funds, right? So that when the debit comes, it knows that it's debiting money. We started off with that in Africa, Nigeria at some point, and then, we just moved to single messages. If we were to bring back pre-auth, can it be a way to solve this insufficient funds thing? What do you think?
We still have it. We still have it too. So look, if I put my card on any of these sites, anything, the first thing they'll do is send a $1. Okay. The $1 is just to test, to submit, or is the card valid? So that's the first pre-auth, and then they will later on, once you've done the service, they'll now charge you for that. So pre-auth still exists. The challenge is that it's the customer behavior. Today, if I issue you with a debit card, the assumption is you have money in your debit card. You understand? You have money in your account. So if I issue you with a prepaid card, you have to fund it. Okay. Some people forget to fund. So we're taking care of that by making sure the customer journey is you must fund before you get the card. But also, that's where you're having what you call the prepaid debit card or companion card, especially the MNOs, want that kind of product. They have a wallet and they want a card that is tied to the balance on the wallet, So with that, you should see fewer insufficient funds, because the assumption is the wallet has money, which sometimes it has, sometimes it doesn't have as well. But the challenge now with the wallet is, there are more points of failure, because you have And remember, on the wallet side and the fintech side, the architectures, the cards is like milliseconds. Everything has to go fast, fast, fast. But when you get outside of the card ecosystem, you go to a wallet or you go to a fintech, you know, it's slower. And sometimes you don't get the response on time. So that transaction is dropped, you know, and then it's declined, you know, and then, you know, people, this card, no, they work. It's not that it's not working, it's because, you know, your system is not responding in time. So yeah, there's a lot. Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Okay.